NASA has finally confirmed what engineers documented during the 2024 Starliner mission. The spacecraft's Teflon seals are systematically failing, and it's not a manufacturing defect. It's a design flaw. Internal telemetry data reveals that every time Starliner fires its thrusters, the Teflon seals overheat from repeated use, deform, and block propellant flow. Multiple thrusters failed during the crew test flight, forcing NASA to return the capsule uncrewed. The evidence burns up with each mission when the service module disintegrates during re-entry, making real fixes nearly impossible to verify. Let's dive right in. To understand why NASA finally admitted the truth about Starliner's Teflon seals, we need to go back to June 5th, 2024. This wasn't just another test flight. It was Boeing's last chance to prove their spacecraft could safely carry astronauts. The launch looked perfect. Atlas V roared to life, Starliner separated cleanly, and initial telemetry showed all systems nominal. That relief lasted exactly 24 hours. The first anomaly report, helium leak detected in the propulsion system. Within hours, something far worse appeared. One reaction control thruster went offline, then another. By day's end, 5 critical thrusters had failed, each showing identical symptoms. NASA's engineers recognized the pattern immediately. This wasn't random failure. Something systematic was destroying Starliner's ability to maneuver in space. Every Starliner thruster contains dozens of small Teflon seals, each smaller than a coin. These maintain pressure barriers controlling propellant flow during engine firing. It's the same material used in cookware, chosen because it handles extreme temperatures and doesn't react with rocket fuel. The problem lies in thermal cycling, repeated heating and cooling every time a thruster fires. Each ignition heats the combustion chamber to over 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit. When it shuts down, rapid cooling follows. This constant expansion and contraction breaks down Teflon's molecular structure. Boeing calculated these seals would handle 100 thermal cycles. A typical mission requires 50 to 75 firings. The math seemed to work, but only under perfect conditions that don't exist in real spaceflight. Internal documents reveal Boeing's engineers identified seal problems during 2019 ground testing. Test firings showed degradation after just 40 to 50 cycles, half the predicted lifespan. Instead of redesigning the seals, Boeing submitted revised calculations showing nominal mission profiles would keep usage within limits. They changed the requirements rather than fix the hardware. With the program years behind schedule and billions over budget, the decision was made to proceed with known limitations. Boeing and NASA knew about helium leaks before Starliner left the launch pad. Pre-flight inspections detected multiple leaks weeks before launch. Standard rules require any propulsion anomaly be corrected before crew launch. They proceeded anyway, betting that computer simulations showing acceptable risk were accurate. What simulations didn't account for? How problems would interact in space. As helium leaked, reduced pressure forced longer thruster firings. Longer firings meant more thermal cycles. More cycles accelerated seal degradation. The spacecraft was destroying itself with every maneuver. 3 days into the mission, flight controllers faced an unprecedented situation. Starliner was functional, but each thruster firing risked losing another control system. Safety margins were shrinking hourly. Emergency engineering reviews ran around the clock. Boeing maintained Starliner could safely return crew. NASA's safety advisors were far less convinced. Flight data showed clear degradation trends. Engineers calculated how many more firings the system could handle. The numbers weren't encouraging. August 24, 2024, NASA announced Starliner would return uncrewed. The astronauts would stay aboard the space station until SpaceX Dragon could retrieve them. This wasn't just technical. NASA was declaring they didn't trust Boeing's spacecraft with human lives. Boeing's stock dropped 5%. More importantly, it ended Boeing's reputation as a reliable human spaceflight contractor. When Starliner returned, the service module containing all failed thrusters burned up during re-entry as designed. NASA and Boeing had terabytes of data but zero physical evidence. Boeing proposed fixes based on computer modeling, but none could be tested against hardware that had actually failed in space. Engineers were flying blind, making educated guesses about problems they couldn't examine. Analyzing historical data revealed disturbing patterns. The 2019 test lost multiple thrusters, blamed on software. The 2022 test had two failures, attributed to contamination. Only with complete 2024 telemetry could engineers see the truth. Identical Teflon degradation across all flights. The problems weren't random. They were systematic design flaws present from the beginning. The situation created unprecedented tension within NASA. The Commercial Crew Program Office maintained operational workarounds could manage seal problems. Safety officials demanded fundamental design changes. Canceling Starliner meant admitting half of NASA's commercial crew investment had failed. It also left America dependent on SpaceX alone, exactly what the dual-provider strategy aimed to avoid. Starliner uses hypergolic propellants that ignite spontaneously when mixed. During firing, combustion exceeds 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit instantly. Teflon seals experience rapid thermal expansion as heat transfers through metal. Repeated cycling causes chain scission, breaking of polymer chains giving Teflon its strength. Each cycle makes material more brittle and prone to deformation. Failed seals don't rupture. They gradually lose pressure barrier capability. Propellant flow becomes irregular. Thrust drops below specification. The thruster becomes unreliable, not dead. In space operations requiring split-second timing, this uncertainty is unacceptable. Congressional committees question Boeing's transparency. Internal documents suggest engineers identified problems early, but chose not to redesign due to cost and schedule pressures. Boeing spent $800 million on corrections between 2019 and 2024, but mostly on software and electrical issues, not propulsion design problems. Whistleblower reports indicate engineers recommended seal upgrades in 2018, but management rejected proposals to maintain schedules. NASA faces critical decisions. Boeing proposes modifications requiring 3 to 5 years and hundreds of millions more. The alternative, proceed with restrictions accepting higher risk levels, many experts consider unacceptable. Either path significantly impacts crew transportation. Delays could force extended SpaceX reliance, creating the single provider dependency NASA sought to avoid. International partners express concerns about American reliability. ESA and Artemis participants are quietly evaluating backup plans for station access in lunar missions. Starliner's failures affect the entire commercial space industry. Companies developing crew vehicles now implement rigorous thermal cycling tests. NASA is modifying certification requirements, increasing development costs for all future programs. Beyond $1.8 billion in Boeing losses, delays cost taxpayers an additional $600 million in extended contracts and alternative arrangements. Costs continue accumulating as the program remains in limbo. Critical questions remain unanswered. Boeing's proposed fixes address known issues, but effectiveness cannot be verified without years of testing. NASA's certification requires reliability demonstration through multiple successful missions, unprecedented challenges given Starliner's track record. Industry observers watch to see whether NASA will accept modifications, require complete redesign, or terminate the program. Each option carries significant implications for American space capabilities and commercial industry development. The balance between rapid development and comprehensive testing remains a fundamental challenge as the space industry seeks to meet both schedule demands and safety requirements. This is exactly why NASA's admission about Starliner's Teflon seals changes everything. It proves that when profit margins meet astronaut safety, corners get cut, even on components as simple as kitchen cookware material. The real story here isn't just Boeing's failure. It's that we're witnessing a fundamental clash between Silicon Valley's move fast and break things culture and the unforgiving reality of space where breaking things kills people. What happens next will define human spaceflight for decades. Boeing has 18 months to either fix Starliner completely or abandon crew transportation forever. NASA must decide, accept compromise safety or demand perfection. Meanwhile, SpaceX is positioning to become America's only path to space. But here's what's really at stake. Every future crew vehicle, whether it's for lunar missions, Mars exploration, or space tourism, will be judged by how we handle this crisis. The lessons from Starliner's Teflon seals will either save lives or be catastrophically ignored. What do you think NASA should do? Force Boeing to completely redesign the system or accept the risk. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If this deep dive into space engineering opened your eyes like it did mine, smash that like button. Hit subscribe and ring the notification bell so you never miss our investigations into what's really happening behind the scenes in space exploration. This is Space Insider, where we uncover the truth the space industry doesn't want you to know. Because in space, the difference between success and disaster often comes down to something as small as a Teflon seal. For 19th, NASA's safety panel publicly declared SpaceX's Starship HLS won't be ready for 2027's Artemis 3. Flight Director Paul Hill questioned SpaceX's entire capability after 4 years of development. Elon Musk and Gwynne Shotwell fired back hard. The facts? NASA gave SpaceX $4 billion over 4 years, while their own SLS took $40 billion across a decade. Yet they're criticizing SpaceX's timeline? The responses were brutal and backed by evidence that made NASA look hypocritical. Let's dive right in on September. So what exactly triggered NASA's unprecedented public attack? This wasn't a routine safety review. It was a calculated strike that had been building for months. Following a recent inspection visit to SpaceX's Starbase facility, NASA's Aerospace Safety Advisory Panel made an unusual decision: go public with their concerns. Paul Hill, the former NASA flight director leading the charge, brought serious credentials to this fight. This is someone who's managed human spaceflight missions for decades and reports directly to both NASA leadership and Congress. When Hill speaks, people listen. When he raises safety red flags, it can end careers and kill programs overnight. That's exactly what made his September 19th statement so devastating. Hill didn't just question SpaceX's timeline, he systematically dismantled their credibility piece by piece. His words were surgical and deliberate. SpaceX has only released design concepts and conducted preliminary functional tests, which are insufficient to instill confidence in the system's readiness. Translation? After 4 years and billions in funding, NASA was essentially saying SpaceX had nothing substantial to show for their work. But the panel went deeper. They zeroed in on cryogenic propellant transfer, the make-or-break technology that allows Starship to refuel in orbit before heading to the moon. Originally promised for late 2025, this critical milestone had already slipped to 2026. Each delay, they argued, proved SpaceX was drowning in technical challenges they couldn't solve. Former astronauts Charlie Precourt and Kent Raminer sat alongside Hill, nodding in agreement. The optics were brutal. NASA's most respected voices were publicly questioning whether America's lunar ambitions were built on empty promises. Yet something felt calculated about this timing. Why choose this moment for such a public confrontation? Here's where NASA's criticism reveals a stunning double standard that completely undermines their credibility. They're attacking SpaceX for taking 4 years to develop a revolutionary lunar landing system. But let's examine NASA's own track record with brutal honesty. The Space Launch System began development in 2011. It finally completed its first flight in November 2022. That's 11 years for a rocket that's essentially an upgraded version of Apollo-era technology. Total cost? A staggering $35 to $40 billion. And here's the kicker: it can't even be reused. Meanwhile, SpaceX received $4 billion total for both HLS contracts. That's roughly 1/10 of what NASA spent on SLS alone. Yet somehow NASA expects SpaceX to move at twice the pace while developing technology that's never been attempted before. The comparison is almost laughable. NASA spent 4 decades and $40 billion to build what amounts to a more powerful Saturn V. SpaceX is creating a fully reusable spacecraft capable of carrying over 100 tons to the moon and beyond for a fraction of that investment. Which approach represents better value for American taxpayers? The answer seems obvious. Elon Musk's response was swift, brutal, and strategically perfect. Rather than dignify NASA's panel with a direct response, he targeted a New York Times article that had amplified their criticisms. His dismissal was devastating in its simplicity. It's not worth lining a parrot cage with New York Times, let alone reading it. This wasn't just a comeback, it was a masterclass in corporate warfare. Musk was sending a clear message. NASA's concerns weren't even worth a serious response. When the Times article suggested replacing SpaceX with Blue Origin's lunar lander, Musk's reply was even more cutting. A simple LOL, short, dismissive, absolutely brutal. But the real power move came from SpaceX President Gwynne Shotwell, who delivered the substantive response that made NASA's panel look foolish and uninformed. While Musk provided the zingers, Shotwell delivered the knockout punch with facts and data that systematically dismantled NASA's arguments. She didn't just defend SpaceX's progress. She highlighted recent victories that prove the company's approach works. Flight 10's success on August 26th was crucial. My Starship team needed that victory. We achieved every single mission objective we wanted. This wasn't corporate spin. After 3 previous test flights ended with anomalies, SpaceX had demonstrated their ability to learn, adapt, and overcome technical challenges rapidly. More importantly, Shotwell revealed that Starship V3, the version actually capable of lunar missions, would debut in late 2024 or early 2025. Can we actually move the propellant? Will it stay cold enough? That's what we'll see next year, she explained. While acknowledging the technical challenges, her confidence was unmistakable and impossible to fake. This is where NASA's criticism falls flat. Shotwell has guided SpaceX through every major breakthrough of the past 2 decades. Her track record of turning impossible promises into reality is unmatched in the aerospace industry. Let's address the core concern that has NASA's panel worried: orbital refueling. The numbers are genuinely daunting, and critics aren't wrong to raise questions. Each Artemis lunar mission will require between 8 to 20 separate tanker flights to fully fuel the HLS lander. That's approximately 1,200 tons of propellant that must be transferred in the vacuum of space, while both vehicles travel at orbital velocities of over 17,000 miles per hour. Former NASA Administrator Mike Griffin ran the probability calculations and found sobering results. Even assuming each individual transfer has a 98% success rate, stringing together